Thank you. Is this on? Okay. Okay, my name is Frank Graham. I am from Lansing, Michigan. I moved here in May. Been teaching metaphysical classes for about 20 years now. Put together quite a few things. I've worked with some physics professors from different universities like Duke and things, who eventually told me, I don't want to talk to you anymore, because they don't like the spiritual. Most of them were atheists and they had no time for what I was into at all. A couple of things I just put up here that have nothing to do with the notes. I just wanted to explain a few things as far as, yeah, sure, you can do this. When I talk about planes, dimensions, waves, and frequencies, this is kind of an illustration. One-dimensional, two-dimensional, three dimensions. Okay, planes go through each one of those. Okay, the planes you can call these 10 numbers planets, chakras, the 10 heavens of the ancient Jewish, the 10 Sephiroth of the Kabbalah, and the 10 angelic orders. Okay, but essentially what you're doing is you send energy through planes. Okay, as above, so below, this is what it describes. You're sending energy through all three dimensions, through one plane, affecting all three, bringing it back down. Okay?
Right.
Yes?
Just one quick thing, the air from the air conditioner blowing against the mic. Can you
Okay.
out about a foot?
Sure. Sure. And the other illustration is, I'm big into protection. That's part of something that I do, because I also do paranormal investigations. I do demonic vanishings of houses and different places. There's actually places I'm not allowed to go because of that. But this is a two-dimensional representation. Everybody knows what a pentagram is. You have the four elements and then aether. Okay? Pyramids, as far as like the superior banishing ritual of the pentagram, what you're doing when you do one of those is you're actually forming a pyramid of protection around yourself, which is why when you do a superior, you don't need to have, you can't break the barrier, because you make a pyramid of each side of the pyramid represents an element, fire, air, water, or earth. Each side represents cardinal, fixed, or mutable. So the signs that are broken down into the zodiac. Okay? You surround yourself with that, and instead of being around a circle, you're inside of a sphere, and the sphere moves with you as you go. So when you do superior protection in the morning or at night, you are doing protection that you only have to do once a day, and it goes with you anywhere you're at. Okay? Okay, I just want to point this out. Now we'll get back into the sheets. I'm going to try to get through these in a half an hour. I tried to write the notes so that you guys could just listen to what I was saying and didn't have to worry about writing anything down. And that's what I do with most of my stuff. This is also kind of the outline for a book I'm writing, so I turned it into a lecture. I can't get really into spiritual or scientific axioms. I talk about the Hermetic principles mainly and tying them into Newton's theories and breaking the elements down into like the four forces of nature. So fire being strong nuclear, water being weak nuclear, electromagnetic being air, and gravitational being earth. Okay? And then as far as masculine and feminine go, masculine is what we call kinetic energy, and feminine is what we call potential. Okay? And then everything works in cycles. Okay? Especially in three-dimensional energy or even in two-dimensional energy. Even the one-dimensional energy, they're just forms of measurement. And I can get down, that's in part 6, down at the bottom of your first sheet. If you want to talk about one-dimensional elemental energy, fire, heat, earth firmness, air agility, water grossness, those all come from Plato. Okay? In three-dimensional reality, in order to bring that into a factual, heat is momentum. Okay? Earth is durability. Air is velocity, and water is density. We all know and can kind of understand what that is all about. Okay? And those can be broken down further. Momentum can be broken down into direction and... Oh, come on, Frank. Well, let's go... I'm going to go back to the beginning, and we'll get back to that. I'm sorry. Universal consciousness. Plato talked about something called the all, and a lot of the old philosophers did too, Plotinus, Pythagoras, them. And the all was the unknowable, unreachable God. Okay. It's everything and anything. It's good, evil, and all things. It is before separation. It is what everything goes back to the beginning of, and it is the beginning and the end of everything. Okay? The first separation, when you go back to Plato, is the all wanted to create an exact duplicate of itself. So it made not a separate entity from itself. It made a division within itself. And that first division was reflection. One of the big debates back in the time between some of the old philosophers was, if the soul of the universe is inherently feminine and the all is pouring energy into it, how can it represent all four elements when two of the elements are masculine? And reflection answers that question, because if you look at a reflection, and from what we know about reflection, light is reflected, which is fire. Air is reflected. Water is reflected. Earth is reflected in a reflection itself. Two-dimensional energy and one-dimensional energy is the actual reflection. Three-dimensional energy happens from what we know from a reflection when light and energy refracts off of it. And it refracts into three parts as far as three-dimensional energy is concerned. It refracts into positive energy, negative energy, which is charge, or positive charge, negative charge, and absence of charge that takes up space. So positive charge being protons, negative charge being electrons, and absence of charge that takes up space would be a neutron inside of a nucleus. Okay, so the building blocks of matter. Okay, I don't get into quantum stuff because I don't find that practical. It's great in a room when you're sitting at a board doing a mathematical equation, but I don't really find it very practical when you're trying to do meditation or anything of that nature, because there's too much to it. Let's see. I've also broken protons, electrons, and neutrons into cardinal, fixed, and mutable. So the building blocks of astrology, how they break down the four elements into the 12 signs. Okay. Protons, cardinal energy is initiating energy. It starts a process. It decides what something is going to be. Protons decide the atomic weight in the periodic table of elements. Okay. What an electron does, it's not part of the nucleus. It goes around the nucleus. But it attracts other atoms to it. And fixed energy in astrology empowers and creates more. Okay. Neutrons are what I consider mutable energy. Okay. Neutrons have no charge. They take up space inside of the nucleus with the protons, okay? And they determine, and the problem with protons is that protons together don't get along. They don't like each other, and they can't balance each other out. You need neutrons inside the nucleus in order to calm down the protons, essentially, or they're going to blast each other out, and you won't have anything, okay? And neutrons, because they're zero, which is infinite, are to me spiritual, because that's what the infinite is. Infinity is spirited as God. Okay? And that's another one of the reasons that most of the physicists that I talked to didn't want to talk to me, because they hate zero, and they don't want to talk about zero in equations. Aether. That's a big one that comes up because some people call it the fifth element. Aether is not an element. Elements, when you talk about two-dimensional energy, elements transform one into the next, utilizing powers. So fire is hot and dry. Earth is dry and cold. Water is cold and moist, and air is moist and hot. And that's the cycle that it travels, that all of them travel together. Okay? That comes from Plato. The problem with aether is that aether transfuses through everything. It doesn't transform from one thing to the next. It's more like what dark matter is considered. Okay? They can't prove it. They know it exists. And the reason they can't prove it is because it doesn't move anything out of its way. And the way that we measure energy is how it affects other particles. And dark matter affects nothing. It goes right through it. So that's why aether cannot be considered an element. Okay? And I know this is going very quickly, but I've got 7 pages I have to get through. Okay? It is infinite. It is divine. Aether is the vehicle that the all uses to connect all things together, essentially. Okay? The elements. The elements in the three-dimensional energy: water is sensitivity, air is interaction, fire is expression, earth is substance. And again, aether transmutates through them all, okay, and connects us all with the divine. Okay, so water is what gets us to sense, air gets us to communicate, fire gets us to move and get things moving, and earth is the substance, gives us three-dimensional reality so that we can do things like this. Okay? In one-dimensional energy, again, fire is measurement, and earth, air, and water are all measurements. They're measurements of either momentum, they're measurements of durability, velocity, and density. Again, if we talk about air and velocity, that would be, it's not weight and mass, it's mass and volume, okay? Because weight is determined by gravity, depending on where you are, but volume is not. Let's see. Velocity is speed and precision, okay? You can be precise and you can be wrong, but you can't be accurate and wrong, which is why I don't use accurate, I use precision, okay? Because especially when you're thinking or when you're debating somebody or you're coming up with something in your head, you can pinpoint it, it can be perfect, and it can be the wrong answer. Okay? Earth being firmness, strength, and stamina. Okay? And I use stamina because you can have a strong voice. Okay? And it's not physically strong. Okay? And then again, momentum is direction, but it's also movement. It's movement and direction. Okay, it's how far you're going to go, how fast you're going to go, and they all interact with each other. One-dimensional energy, again, they're just measurements of that. They're measurements of movement. They're measurements of density, velocity, and durability. Okay. Let's turn it over. Okay, now, when you take cardinal, fixed, and mutable, cardinal is personal energy. Okay? Fixed is creative. And mutable is spiritual. So the signs, instead of being Aries, Leo, Taurus, become personal expression. That's what Aries becomes. Okay? Taurus becomes creative substance. Gemini becomes spiritual interaction. Cancer becomes personal sensitivity. Leo becomes creative expression. Virgo becomes spiritual substance. Then you have Libra, which is personal interaction. Then you have Scorpio, creative sensitivity. You have Sagittarius, which is personal expression. Then you have Capricorn, which is personal substance. You have Aquarius, which is creative interaction. And you have Pisces, which is spiritual sensitivity. Okay? And that's kind of how I break them down, because it's much easier to work with that when you're doing meditations, or if you're actually trying to work with the energies, than trying to say, I want to bring in Pisces. Because most people think that's like a fish. And that's not exactly what it is. Okay? I've got sensing down there. That's pretty self-explanatory. When you break things into that, let's get into planes. Again, when I was talking about planes and how to reach energy and how to work with energy, the planes can be broken down into four things, and we get that into a little later, or at least I do. I break them down into four things. I break them down into planets, chakras, the angelic orders, and the heavens. Okay? And I break those down because there are times where if you want to work with sun energy, okay, or what most people would consider sun energy, and you go, okay, that means Leo. And not all the time when you want to connect with that solar energy, you're looking for Leo. Sometimes you want grace, valor, okay, or manifestations, or with miracles. That is covered by the order of virtues. Virtues connect with the sun element, okay? And you bring those, or you would travel those, and when you get those, you would bring the energy through the sun, if you're doing a meditation, into your solar plexus chakra, okay? Now, if you wanted to work more on, like, if you were having problem in business, or you needed more order in your life, okay, that's going to be Saturn, okay? Saturn is going to connect with dominations. That's what dominations do. They create lordship. okay? And they aspire for true lordship, and they regulate the duties of other angels, okay? And you would bring that energy in, and you would bring it into your root chakra, okay? So there are different ways to connect with different energies, but you're utilizing exactly the same energy. You're just doing it in a different way that's more practical for you, okay? Okay. Okay. Now I've broken them down by planet into each of them. So the sun, the energy is Leo, it's creative expression, okay? God, goddess. The sun is masculine because it is the only planet that has one masculine sign to it, okay? The moon is the only one that has a feminine sign, okay? Rulership. All the other two have a masculine and a feminine that they rule, okay? And that masculine and feminine is not gender, because gender is about Mars and Venus. And Mars and Venus both rule a masculine and feminine sign. So it doesn't break down into just masculine and feminine. There is a mixture there. Okay? The sun is also its radiance. It connects to your solar plexus chakra. Okay? And I do totems for all of these kind of things. Animal totems. I do animal totems, I do herb totems, I do metal totems, and I do crystal totems for all of the different planets and chakras. Shemayim is the heaven that the sun is related to. It's the abode of the fixed stars, okay? And the heavens run Shemayim, Raquia, Shahakwan, Machanan, Mathi, Zabul, Erebath, Muzaloth, Kukavim, and Erebath. Okay? Those are the 10 heavens. And each of them, again, is associated with a different planet, but they're all plane energy, okay? You work with them and go through all 3 different dimensions. So if you're doing, whatever you want to call it, if you're doing like a manifestation, or if you're into paganism and you're doing a spell, or if you're doing a prayer, okay? When you're putting your prayers together, you need to keep all of these things in mind when you're going through here and what exactly it is that you're trying to do. Because if you change something here, you're going to change something here and here, whether you like it or not. And it's better to know what you're changing and how you're changing and putting it in there than to just kind of go, I'm going to do this and let it go. Okay. Oh, okay. I thought you were saying I was, okay, out of time. Okay. And it goes through, again, all of the planets. Okay. When we start with Mercury, the planets become androgynous. Okay. They all rule a masculine and a feminine sign. Okay. The 7 inner planets we call the personal rulers. We do that because of behavior characteristics. They rule particular things in your personality. The 3 outer planets, because they move so slowly in their cycles, they're generational rulers. And they rule generations. Okay, they affect the entire generation because that's how long it takes for them to go back through their cycle. So everybody in a particular generation your sign and planet will all be the same. Okay? And we can go through all of those. Okay, now we're going to get into the houses. I put the houses in here because with the houses, you can actually look, once you study houses long enough, you can look at an inanimate object and create a wheel of houses for it, like you would in astrology. You can't put planets in there because you have no idea what time they were born. But by looking at where is the flash of this table, where is the pizzazz, what stands out about the table, you can figure out where its first house is, what its first house is, and what sign that is. Okay, the same with the second house. What's the structure of it? How is it formed? Okay, the third house, what is its purpose? The fourth house, what does it need, or what needs does it fill? The sixth house, go through that, is presence, because it is spiritual substance, and that is presence. Okay, and it goes through all the houses. Venus, or the seventh house, intimacy. Eighth house, desires, attraction, what attracts you to it. The ninth house, okay, what is its perception or your perception of it? What is its function would be the 10th house, okay. What logic does it hold? Is it a chaotic piece, whatever you're looking at? What are all the structures and different things that go along with it? And then the mood. What is the mood of the thing that you're looking at? Okay, because you can have two tables that look exactly the same, side by side, but you'll like this one better than that one, and the answer, and the question is why. Okay? And looking at this, you can start looking at things in a different way and seeing it more energetically rather than it's just a table. Okay? Okay. Now, when we look at things like the ascendants, okay, how does it present itself? Okay, whatever you're looking at, that will be its ascendant. Okay? What is its intimate truth? This is what it presents itself as, but what is it really? Okay? And it's going to be different to you, and it's going to be different to a person that's standing next to you. You could look at this table and go, oh, look, this would be a nice altar. Somebody else could go, no, I'm going to stick this thing on there, and I'm going to put trophies on it or whatever. Okay? So part of it is up to you, but you're looking at and you're reading the energy that's coming to you, kind of like you would an animal. Okay? And feeling it out. We already did the Senate. So the midheaven, okay? Midheaven rules the consciousness, okay? The nadir rules the unconscious, okay? And that's more in line with yourself. It's going to be hard to determine that in a piece unless you do a really deep meditation on it, and that's something that you can learn. But it's not something you're just going to be able to look at a table and go, okay, I know what the subconscious, the unconscious aspirations of this table are, or the conscious ones are. But that's a connection that you can make with a different particular piece. And it's the same thing with the ascendant and the descendant, because they're not real things. They're not like planets. They're just points, and that's what they are in a chart. They're just points in a chart on the horizon where the sun was at the time that you were born. Okay? Now, I'm going to get into the aspects, because the aspects are something that most people aren't working with, essentially. They work with them in astrology to say, this is a challenge, this can be semi-chaotic, this is energy that's really easy, which would be a trine. But in three-dimensional reality, the aspects represent the platonic solids, okay? A tetrahedron is made up of 120-degree angles from start to each of its points. That is a trine, okay? I use that energy to bring in elemental energy, and I also use that when I'm doing my ritual to bring that energy in. I do a invocation ritual of the hexagram, and I call in proton, electron, neutron, cardinal, fixed, and mutable energy when I do it. I do them once a week, each of the platonic solids. The cube are 6 pyramids that you create, and you are the middle of it, and they go all around you, and you bring in 2 planets with each invocation ritual of the hexagram that you do when you're creating each pyramid, and that gives you all 10 planetary energies surrounding you in one. Okay? I utilize the octahedron, which is 2 pyramids, to do, I do 1 of those for protection, and call in protection energy and beings, and I use the other one for empowerment. Okay? And when you're doing those, the points are at the top, you're in the middle of the base at the bottom. And I do those daily. Okay, and you're surrounded by a sphere, so again, you can move without ever breaking it. Unlike when you have to do a banishing ritual of like the pentagram, where essentially you have to you're either drawing it out on the floor, or you're seeing it. Anybody who breaks it, it's gone. You break it, it's gone. It's not really effective when you're walking around in society. It's great if you're doing a ritual in a room by yourself. But once you're done, you need 3-dimensional protection. And superiors make you, when you're doing them, you actually make 3 pentagrams for each elemental side. Okay? And those 3 become your cardinal, fixed, mutable, and that's what creates your pyramid that surrounds you. Okay? The icosahedron. The icosahedron is made up of 20 sides. It's 10 invocation rituals of the hexagram that you do in one ritual. And you create essentially a octahedron or an icosahedron around you. Okay? And that brings in water energy. And I'm sorry, I should have said that. Tetrahedrons, fire energy. Octahedrons, air energy. Icosahedrons are water energy. The cube is earth energy. And then the dodecahedron brings them all in, because you make pentagons. like a soccer ball, okay? And when I do those, I bring in all of the house energy of the zodiac. So you surround yourself with everything in the zodiac when you get all the platonic solids done. Okay? How am I doing on time here? Am I okay? Okay. Any questions?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm sure there are some.
the Merkaba.
The Merkaba. Yes, angelic orders, the
I didn't
Merkaba.
see that in any of these words. Did you-
Well, I don't do, huh?
Did you want to touch on it?
What, the Merkaba?
Yeah.
I do a Merkaba. I do a wheel Merkaba. Merkaba is an angelic order. They're an ancient angelic order. They are the Merkaba princes. They hold a hierarchy above any of the other angels in the orders at all. That's why they're on. That's why I don't have them in the angelic orders, because they're usually not counted. The Merkabas are, how would I describe the Merkabas?
I was meaning the
They're over-
structural Merkaba,
You mean like the wheels?
the inverted pyramids.
Yeah, I don't really do a lot with those. For me, the Merkabas are an angelic order that deal with orbits, okay? And that's how I bring in sign energy when I do my protection stuff and when I do my banishments. I pull in Merkaba angels for the different directions with the different elements, and they've always pulled in for me all of the energy. And I use the seraphim, so I use Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel as a filter to filter out the negative aspects of the energy I'm pulling in through the Merkaba. That's what they've always been for me. I don't do the Metatron.
Yeah, I'm talking about Ezekiel's structural.
Yeah,
Yeah, you have a
right.
different.
Yeah, I have a different.
concept,
Yeah, I have a different concept on that. You can utilize it in that way, but I don't. I utilize it mainly for protection. Again, I've never. I've tried to use other things. I've tried to use gods from different pantheons when I've done demonic banishings and things of that nature, and I've had trouble until I started with the Merkaba princes. And once I did the Merkaba princes like Sothar Ashiel and Akathriel Yehud Sabaoth and Anathiel, and called angels of that power in, I've never had a problem doing a banishment or with having attachments cooked to me or anybody else that I brought with me. Because I usually bring I bring myself, I bring a psychic, I bring investigators that have equipment, and I bring usually somebody like an atheist that doesn't believe in any of it, so that they can just discount any of the electrical stuff that's going on in the house. Cord bundles that are causing EMF readers to go crazy and things of that nature, because you need somebody who can do that. Otherwise, you don't really know what you're dealing with. Okay, but as far as the Merkaba goes, that's the only way I utilize them, and I use them in a watchtower ritual when I do mine. I bring them in through the watchtowers. Anything else on that?
Can you just point on about protection a little bit more? Just about, you talked about a little bit about protection earlier.
Oh, about
Yeah,
the,
I'd like to know about how you go about it.
well, when I do my protection, I do what's called the superior banishing rituals of the pentagram. When I do those, I call in celestial beings, angels. There are, 12 when I do mine. Altogether, I believe there are 72 that I do when you take in all the platonic solids together. But for the first one, I do 12 for protection, and then the empowerment I do 24. And I do them both together because I do the protection to protect me from getting attacked when I go and do a banishment. I do the empowerment ones for the energy to get rid of what's there. And you essentially, you create your pentagrams and you call in the signs, you call in angelic beings to pull that sign energy into you, okay? And you invoke that energy within yourself on all four sides, and you end up doing 3 pentagrams on each, from each direction. So each element, 3 pentagrams, 3 beings for each one. Okay, and the beings are up to who's doing it. I have people that do healing. They use different angels than I do because that's not what I'm doing mine for. But when I do healings, I will call in different angels. So that's really up to the individual who's doing them. When I teach them, there are angels of signs that I use as a base. And when people get more comfortable after they've done them for a while, they'll switch them out with ones that they're more comfortable working with. I don't know if that helped you in that regard. Yes.
Have you done banishments or cleansing of houses using Mark chapter 16, the name of Jesus Christ?
No, I have
you
not.
done banishment that way?
No, I do it with the Pentagrammaton. So Yud He Shin Vav He is usually what I use when I go in and do them. And I bring a staff with me when I do it. And it pretty much blasts everything out of the house. And then I grid them with citrine. I create a grid with citrine to keep everything out after I leave. That's how I do mine. And I use citrine because citrine is one of, well, you can use citrine or kyanite, but those are the only two stones that don't take in negative energy, and you never have to cleanse them. So you can keep the grid up forever, essentially, on the property.
Do you have the sacred name on your staff?
No.
Staff you take?
Nope, I don't have the sacred name on it, but I do have, I use stones to represent earth on it. It's made out of, it's made of a particular wood for the air energy. I have a golden eagle owl feather that's inside the bottom of it, and to hold that in, I have a piece of copper on the bottom, so that gives me all my 4 elements to contain it. And then I have a leather strap on the hand too for more animal energy, and there's stones all over it. There's metals all throughout it, and I created that like 15 years ago, and just started using it, and it works really well. And what I've noticed the difference between like a wand and a staff is that a staff will blow out energy either one at a 180-degree radius or 360, and you can pinpoint with a wand more accurately than you can with a staff, because a staff just kind of wah, and it holds a lot of energy. You can pour a lot of energy into your staff instead of having to keep funneling it through yourself. You can put more into it. Yeah. Anything else? Anyone? Okay. But I also use. Oh, yes.
I just want to ask, so you do teaching, and so do you help people go from ground zero up to 100 kind of?
Yes. I start with exercises I call the fundamentals. When I was working at the Metaphysical Church where I was ordained, we had meditations each Wednesday, and there was a Pentecostal, well, we had a Coptic minister, a Pentecostal minister, a Gnostic minister. What else did we have? We had a shaman that ran the board. And on meditation nights, the Pentecostal minister had me come in and look around at everybody. And what we noticed was that at least 75% of the people were just sitting there with their eyes shut and had no idea how to meditate. So we came up with, I think there's like 32 exercises, going from focus all the way up to visualization. And that's the first thing I teach. And you hold it for 10 minutes each one, and it also has sense enhancement. And for the visualization, it's not just seeing, it's also creating all of the senses: smell, sound, touch, and taste. And you build it up, and then you break it back down. And that helped a lot of people get past that blockage, because most people couldn't get through the meditations because their minds would start to create different things, and they were going everywhere, and they were like, well, you lost me about 5 minutes into it. And it's like, well, okay. But once they got that and they held their 10 minutes, it was much easier for them to go through the entire. Because we also did workshops every weekend, and we had a guest speaker. So we had like Ted Andrews came in and did a nature speak and an animal speak workshop for us before he passed. And we were, right before I left the church, I had just gotten a deal done with Llewellyn Publishing to have the church put on their circuit for all of their speakers to come through. And then the church didn't want that, so I left. So we did a lot of things with different people, and we did like Colleen Dietzman, who is she is a shaman that lives in Mason, who has 3 or 4 books out through Llewellyn. We were going to have Christopher Penzak come in, but again, that fell through. When I was at the astrology school, we actually had Robert Hand come in and do a few things, speaking engagements and stuff of that nature. So it was nice.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes.
Where do you do your work?
Well, I was doing it in Lansing. I moved here in May. And I went to Spirit Dreams, I think is the name of the store. And she was like, we don't do classes here. You need to go to the Coptic Center. So that's how I got here. Because I've noticed that you don't have a lot of the bookstores like they do in Lansing. And I worked with a pagan group at Michigan State University called the Green Spiral. I was an advisor on that. I worked with MSU Paranormal. And I worked out of 3 stores, Coyote Wisdom, the Blue Raven, and Triple Goddess in Lansing. So I did stores there, and I taught at Convocation in the Detroit area that's held once a year in February. That's where I met Mr. Penzak. And we kind of talked together, and we were going to have him come in and do some stuff, but that kind of fell apart. Yes?
I was just wondering, where did you say you were ordained through?
It was a church called the Metaphysical Church of Christ, and it was in Lansing, Michigan. And it was made up of so many different. Like I said, we had like 6 different ministers, 6 different backgrounds, and eventually they couldn't all get along, and they dissolved the church. Yes.
Where was that located?
That was located right by Sparrow Hospital on the corner of Prospect and Holmes. Not Holmes Avenue, but Holmes Street.
You know, what were some of the names of the ministers? Because we knew some people there.
Barbara Kinsey was a minister there.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
She used to be a Coptic minister.
Yes. She was our Coptic minister. We had, a Sancta Sophia minister also. Her name was Karen Janashka. She was there.
Cecil Pierce Nightingale, I think, at one time was in that church.
They rented room from the church for a while. That was before I got there, but they were part of what's called the Lighthouse Chapel.
That's right.
Yep.
But they
Yes.
separated from metaphysical.
Yeah. Well, they rented room and then they got their own place. Actually, they have their own church now,
Okay. Yeah.
located on the north side. But I know Cecil. Yes, she's very nice. Yes.
You left the metaphysical church then, huh?
Oh yeah. They started their own. Yep, their own practice, and she was. Last I knew, she was the head priestess there of the Lighthouse. Yep. And the time's up. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'm sorry if I went too fast. If you want to talk to me afterwards, that's great.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.